Sourced. I'm Armanda Famiglietti. What does an educator, an illustrator, and a crime scene investigator have in common? Well, they all write children's books. Welcome, Carol Paterno, John Paolucci, and Doris Tomaselli.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So great to have you here. So I'm going to start with you, Carol.
Okay.
Carol, you're the educator.
Yes, I am. Music education is my background.
And so great. And I want you to tell me how music educator Carol Paterno became publisher and author at Daffodil Press.
Well, music educator Carol also enjoys playing with poetry. So a friend told me a story which made me laugh. I wrote a poem and then realized I could tweak it a little bit and you could sing it. Sharing that with my daughter, she looked up at me with a big smile and said, "Mom, this sounds like a children's book." And right away I thought of Doris because I knew that she was a graphics artist and did that kind of thing before she ever met me. And so we got together and discussed what became Swan Pond and discussed a few other things, and Daffodil Press was born out of that.
So you thought of Doris because you and Doris had worked before?
Doris and I knew each other from way back when I got out of college, and I was teaching in Brewster, and she had been helping one of the first grade teachers for many years. I think since she was in 7th grade.
Yeah, middle school.
So that's how we knew each other, and we had just kept in touch over the years. And I knew that she had worked on several children's books through her adult life after college. And when Tanya said a children's book, I knew Doris was the person to go to.
Had you thought about writing children's books before then, or that was the first time?
No, I was playing with poetry. And it was all my daughter Tanya's doing.
Thank you, Tanya. So I know that Tanya's going to watch this show.
That's it.
So Daffodil Press, as far as I know, has been around for only about 3 or 4 years, since 2016.
Yes, exactly.
And you've already published 3 beautiful children's books.
Yeah, we're proud of them.
So tell me about that. We have some covers of your beautiful children's books, everything illustrated by Doris. So
right.
Let's see that first cover.
The first book we published was Slippery Soap.
Slippery Soap, right.
And that came out in mid-2016. And that was a lot of fun. We had a good time. I would go to different libraries and preschools and do readings.
We'll talk more about that later.
Okay, and then as we went along, the next book we had in the pipeline that we knew we wanted to do was that poem that I had written, Swan Pond, and that can actually be read or sung. It actually fits with a song that I used to teach the little ones called "There Was an Old Woman Who Swallowed a Fly, Lived in a Shoe." I knew that was right. So
did she live in a shoe or did she swallow a fly? I want to get to the bottom of this,
That's
Carol.
exactly the mystery. So it can be, that one can be read or sung. And then the newest one just came out in November this year, thanks to a collaboration with John and Doris, and that one's called Saving Montana. And it's actually a true story that John will talk about later.
Yeah, sure. So, Doris, you're the illustrator. Tell me about your background. I mean, I heard a little bit from Carol, but you worked for one of my favorite children illustrators, right?
I did. Well, I always loved to draw, and I did get a degree in fine art and commercial art. But my entire career in children's books and publishing has always been behind the scenes. But I worked with the well-known children's author Mercer Mayer. I painted a number of his books. Wow. I did book design for him, and then I became his full-time art director. And I used my illustration abilities to teach the hired professional artists how to draw his licensed character. And I also used those skills to help as an art director to show the artists what I wanted to do. And my entire career from then, moving on from him, when I did the books for Fisher-Price, I wrote them, designed them because they were intricate lift-to-flap books. Then they sent them off to the professional illustrator. And so I've always been behind the scenes, kind of like the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain, and I'm so excited that Daffodil Press has allowed me to come out from behind the curtain and to show what I can do from start to finish, and I'm just so honored to have my name on a book with these two talented people.
Wow. So tell me, Doris, you don't just illustrate books, right? You have your design business in Brewster?
Yeah, I do graphic design.
What's it called?
It's called Empress Creative, and I do a wide range. And the illustration has helped with that, too, because I can do illustrative logos for people. I can design maps for clients. So it's been an interesting career, and I have to work the Daffodil Press books in between, doing that for a living. But it's fun because it's never a dull moment.
So, John, you're a crime scene investigator. You do that now. You did it before. You were a New York police detective?
Yes, I retired from New York City Police Department, and I currently work privately as a crime scene analyst, doing cases around the country, reconstructing.
Crime scenes?
Yeah, usually murder scenes. Yeah.
Ooh, okay, so naturally you went into writing children's books.
It's a logical progression from bloodstained pattern analysis.
I think, yeah, I can
author,
see the connection.
Yeah.
But this story that you wrote is a true story. I'm not sure if Slippery Soap and Swan Pond are true stories.
Swan Pond is true. Slippery Soap, I think, started off, anybody who has a bar of soap.
If it had been true, I'd have a cleaner house. But no, it was one of those, the bar of soap
tries to get away. As I remember the plot of Slippery Slope.
But bobble it and it goes, and you think, that's a story.
And it just travels through the house, and everybody gets all soapy. And it's really funny and fun. But getting back to Saving Montana, so this is a true story. So I just want to hear the story as much as you can tell without giving the whole book away.
Yeah, well, if actually the second stanza of the book starts out, John had been sad, and I was living in the Bronx at the time in a house that was about 550 square feet with a yard that was the size of maybe 2 parking spaces, not really conducive to owning a horse, right? So I had just lost a good friend of mine, and I went to take horseback riding lessons over near City Island, and I bonded with Montana, and very, very special bond, so I would go pretty regularly and take these lessons.
And Montana is the horse.
Yes, Montana's the horse, right? And then it turned out that Montana had an issue with his feet, so he was kind of unsound, and he's not going to make any money for the stable. So he was going to go to auction, which means sold by the pound.
Oh, gee.
Yeah, and so when I heard that, I said, well, I'll contribute, because the wrangler, Orville, who's also a character in the book, said, well, we're going to get money together, and we're going to buy him, and we're going to bring him to a nice home upstate. Oh. I said, that's wonderful. I said, how much money do you need? He said, I'll let you know. So a little time went by, and I called him up, and I said, well, how are we doing with the money? He goes, we have all the money. We have no place to bring him. And I said, well, let me see if a friend of mine who has 2 horses, lives up in Dutchess County, if he could take him in. And my friend said, no, I don't want to. There's no such thing as a free horse. You got to understand, you're talking about a horse that's got issues.
Oh,
so we need, this is vet bills, this is food. It's going to be very, very expensive, and I'm just not ready to take that responsibility on. And I told him, I said, I really bonded with this horse. And at the time, my plan was to retire from the police department in 2 years and move to Arizona to a house I had. He said, all right. He said, come up here, build him a stall, bring him here, and then when you retire, you take him with you, but he'll be your horse. And so next thing you know, I own a horse, and my friend had 2 children, Charlotte and Anthony, and just the magic that Montana and Charlotte shared was amazing.
I think we have a photograph of Charlotte and Montana.
Yeah.
Because she's a big character in the book, right?
Yes, she is, yeah.
She's adorable.
So she's adorable, and so is Montana. What a sweetie.
I have so many pictures of the 2 of them. It was just such an amazing bond. Wherever she was, her little size, his head was right down there at that level, and she'd turn around and scratch his nose, and just incredible. So I took so many pictures of that, and I used to post them on social media, and a friend of mine said, why don't you write like a children's book about this story between Montana and
Charlotte. Oh,
and of course,
sweet.
the way the universe works, at the time I had an office in Brewster, New York, right next to Empress Creative.
Fortuitous.
Yes. Yeah. So, Doris is such a blessing. And she was just a great neighbor and a great person. And then when I had this idea, I wrote it out as a poem. And I used to write lyrics for songs and things like that. And so I brought it to Doris, and I said, do you want to work together on this? And first you have to meet the main character, so she came up to the farm.
Carrots for bribery.
Brought a big bag of carrots. Yeah.
So we have a photograph of you in Montana. Now, how old is Montana?
He's 23 now.
Is that old for a horse?
About 30s, somewhere around 30 is the life expectancy.
He has such a cute pink nose.
Yes, he does. Yeah, he's got a lot of character.
He's a sweetie.
Yeah.
So how was he doing? You said he had foot problems?
Yeah, so the first thing we did was took his shoes off. Where he was doing his trail rides, we'll say trail rides, so really a lot of pavement was involved. Because it was an urban area, and the whole thing was people who don't know how to ride horses go for these trail rides. And so he'd have often very large people sitting on his back, pulling on his mouth. And when he got up there and he was just on grass the whole time, we took his shoes off, and he made a lot of improvements. Of course, there was some medical things we took care of in the meantime.
Oh, so he's doing pretty well, Montana.
He's doing very well.
And we have, I believe, an illustration, too, from the book. And maybe, Doris, you can tell us a little bit what's going on in this.
Montana's doing his usual, which he's a white horse, and he's like never white. He rolled in the mud the first thing he got there, and he does that consistently every day. So,
Yes, he does.
Yeah. But I tried to express his happiness at being in his new home and rolling in the mud.
Okay. And so let's get back to, there was the challenge with the photographs and the illustration.
Yeah.
So I didn't see a piece of a photograph in that, but sometimes as I look through the book, I did see some half photograph, half illustration. You kind of blended the two together?
Well, yeah, that was in the end of the book because this was based on a true story, so we wanted to, at the end, show the real people that were in the story, and I just thought to blend them with some of the illustrations that were in there. But the first book we did, Slippery Soap, came out of my head, and my major challenge was, can I actually draw what I got pictured in my head? Then when we moved on to Swan Pond, I thought, okay, can I draw what's in my head, and what the heck does a mute swan really look like? And I needed to get reference for all of the animals that appeared in the book, so that upped the challenge a little bit more. Then when I got to Saving Montana, all the characters were real, and everyone in the book had to look like real people. So it was a challenge to draw them correctly and keep them consistent. So I had a lot of photo reference, but there are 3 characters in there, and I had one picture for each. And one of them, your one friend, was 13 years old. And he's a grown man in the book. And I thought, oh, that's, age progression. So I could work with you as a forensic specialist with the age progression.
What's wrong? He doesn't like his picture taken to, oh, John,
Yeah.
is he one of your, undercover friends? Is that the...
Yeah. Right. Mr. X.
Yeah.
Mr. X, okay,
Yeah.
so you only had childhood photos of
So
him.
anyway, so that was
Scary.
the big challenge that everyone, I wanted to do them justice. And, and the story was so sweet, I wanted to get this sentiment in there, whereas the books I do with Carol, we giggle a lot, but this was a different type of story, and I wanted that to come across in the illustrations for it to be sentimental.
We have a couple of illustrations from Slippery Soap, if we can bring them up. So this is one of my favorite illustrations. They're all like this much fun. But so this is, I assume, after the soap has gotten away from the bathroom and is on its merry way down the stairs,
yes,
right? So this looks like a pretty complicated thing to illustrate. Did that give you a challenge, that shot?
Yeah, because the perspective, it's coming right at you. And that's what I wanted to achieve, because I wanted the reader to turn the page and go, whoa, they're coming at you. So we try to do that in some of the books that we're doing. But yeah, each book is a challenge. It's a challenge to keep the consistency with characters. When I'm doing a book, part of the joys and the challenges of doing that is to figure out what picture is going to be the best representation of all that text that's on the page. It's like you got one shot, do you do it right? But also to keep that consistent with all the other pages that are going to be in the book, but also vary it so it's not the same in all the pages of the book. And do they change clothes? What's the hair color going to be? Are they consistently in this one, the young boy carries a bunny, and is he carrying the bunny consistently throughout the book? So there's a lot that goes into it as the challenges go.
That sounds like, though, a creative joy, though, to make those decisions.
It is.
And do that.
Yes.
And then to see it finalized in this beautiful illustration. How many drafts do you do before you said, okay, that's the shot?
Well, I do very rough sketches that really look like gibberish, but I can kind of figure out my placement. Then I do fine line interpretations of them that, I might have to do them over a couple of times. And then to save an extra step, where old school I used to ink the line, because of computers I can scan those pencil lines in and darken them enough to get the nice crisp black line, and then I copy them onto watercolor paper and paint them watercolor.
Wow. Okay.
So
we
several
have
steps.
Another example of your illustration. This one's from Swan Pond. What's happening here?
Oh, well, it's become a wacky parade with everyone interested in the corn, and they're just starting to. Well, in this one, they're realizing they're out of corn, so that's your black moment in the big store. It's like, oh no,
out of corn, and there are policemen following. Now, John,
Yes,
did you have something to do with this? Are you one of them?
It's a lot easier to track swans than some of the people I had to follow.
Oh, okay. So so tell me about that illustration again, and those policemen in the background.
Yeah.
If we can have that back up.
Yeah, well, it's actually Carol's story, so.
Well, it's a true story
yeah.
about feeding swans on a lake, and the swans began to recognize when the people were coming for the food, but then other animals started to show up. But in this story, the swans don't realize that there are other animals behind them. They just keep eating and eating. So it becomes a big, long parade. And in the end, the final group we have coming is the police, and they're keeping the peace as part of the whole rhythm and rhyme. And then at some point, it's all gone. The corn is all gone. And then the parade ends up getting smushed together. And then the police
And
save
there's a
the
riot,
day.
and that's when John comes in.
And the police save the day. And then everyone gets to share in the joy at the end.
Well, I don't want to spoil the story, but you said there's a moment where there's no more corn.
And that was the picture. The little boy is realizing, our bag of corn is empty.
So, I don't know. Should I say? Does
Go
it
ahead.
get more corn?
Well, the police saved the day.
Well, we like
Don't
happy
put it in
endings
that
in our
way.
stories.
You have to read the story and find out how.
Okay. Well,
But the thing that I found also interesting in planning that book out, Doris had several pages that were illustrations only without words. And she thought, I think we need to add something. And as I sat with it, I said, no, Doris, I think this is going to be perfect. Who's ever reading it, be it mom or dad, or someone in the daycare or in the library, this will encourage discussion among the group, what's happening in this picture. And the illustration just after the one you just saw is actually the parade all squished, and you have all different emotions on all the different characters' faces, and to discuss what are they feeling. It's been really fun at the daycares to get the different children's experience of what they see on the face and what they think they're feeling about it.
Right.
And they're Slippery Soap and Swan Pond are rhyme.
Yeah, all three of them do.
Actually, yeah.
Saving Montana's rhyme
Yeah.
too.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. And you wrote that. You have. I think I read in your biography you have a bit of a background in writing. Maybe that was your first choice before you got into police work. Is that true?
Yeah, it actually, that's what led to police work. Was I had an idea to start it like my own column and call it The Finest Funnies, and like follow cops around and get some of their good stories and publish them. And
you became a Finest Funny
I
instead.
did. Yes, I did.
You hung around with them and they said, John, come be a police officer.
Yeah, because concurrently I took a journalism class and also a criminal justice class. And the criminal justice class was at night. It was all cops just trying to finish their degrees and stuff. And I really started taking a serious interest in doing that kind of work.
Okay, so you mentioned the daycare, right? And I think what's interesting about what you folks do is you're very community-oriented, and that's kind of part of the mission of Locally Sourced, is to talk about community-oriented people. And you are so great at going out to libraries, daycare centers, schools, and barns. We even have a picture of John, you reading Saving Montana in a barn. So
Yes.
if we can, there you are. So that's Montana helping you
Turn
read
the
the
pages.
story.
Yeah.
That's delightful. So tell me a little bit about the background of that story, of that.
That photo right there, that was the 4-H group came to the barn where Montana's kept to meet the star and get a reading. To my left is little Charlotte.
She's a little bigger there.
She's not
it's
little
older
anymore.
anymore.
She's 10 years old. And she would actually turn the pages and show the illustrations to the kids that were there.
And to Montana, I hope,
to
because Montana
Montana
looks very interested
Yes,
there.
he's become a little vain through this whole process. Yeah, a little bit.
Has his own
Yeah.
website.
Yes.
Diva Montana is the follow-up now, right? How the famous
There you
contour
go.
dance.
That's right.
Used to be a simple,
A lesson in
humble
humility is
horse.
coming next. Yes.
Might have to be super, because we realized that all of our books start with this.
Oh,
so
there
it's
we
Slippery
go.
Soap, Swan Pond, Saving Montana. So it's got to be Super Montana.
Super Montana. So I'm staying with that. Before I saw the photo of you and the horse in the barn, I saw a copy of your website. Right?
Yes.
That was
and that was
your
me
website.
reading at one of the, in fact, that's the children's station here in Brewster, or we're in Carmel, but in Brewster. That was one of the readings I did of Slippery Soap at the children's station in Brewster.
And we actually have a video of you reading Slippery Soap. I want to say
I know.
Slope,
We
so
all
bad. But we have that video, so that's going to come up in a minute. And so just getting back to a little bit about what do you get back from reading to the kids?
Just the way the kids'
I mean, it must be
faces.
really satisfying to have an audience for your book.
Well, and
right?
the little ones just.
Hold on.
There we
can have
go.
the sound up.
Zigged and it zagged and it zoomed past my brother, who jumped with surprise and then hollered, "Mother!" As we tried to catch it, it sped round the corner, then went for my sister before I could warn her. Her pink ballet slippers got a soapy shampoo. That made her angry, since they were brand new. Oh, it foamed and it slathered, it bubbled and lathered, that slippery, slippery soap. Sliding here, sliding there, sliding here, there, and round, but where was it bound? That slippery, slippery soap. My sister.
Just watching those faces again, they really, you can tell whether the book is really connecting with them just by watching their faces.
And you have a great Facebook page as well. So for people who want to follow Daffodil Press, you have the website daffodil-press.com.
And then if you search Daffodil Press
on Facebook,
it would pop up.
Because there are lots of photos on
Yeah.
Facebook of you folks reading in the community to these kids. And then when you read at a library, you donate the book to the library.
Or the daycare or the preschool. Whoever allows me to come and read, they end up with the book that I read.
And you also, I think, your presence at the farmers market.
Yes,
in,
this
Pauling.
this past summer, Pauling allowed us to be part of their farmers market, or the Pauling Farmers Market is its own entity, and we were assigned four Saturdays to be part of that. Plus the November one, they did first time in the fall. They did one November farmers market.
Okay, you give up a lot of time for this. I remember that you volunteered, not this year but last year, at the Toys for Tots.
Yes.
That was organized by Gil Maley,
Yes.
who was a dear friend of all of us, and the
At
show.
the Brewster Ice Arena.
At the Brewster Ice Arena, and that was terrific that you did that as well. So you guys are just great. What's next for Daffodil Press? Are you going to just rest on your laurels, or
Right.
No, we have a third book definitely in the pipeline.
you mean a fourth?
Well,
Oh,
fourth
that's
for
right,
us,
I'm
but
sorry.
third for Carol. and
Third
me,
for
yeah.
the collaboration of Doris and I, but it will be Daffodil Press's fourth book.
Yeah.
And we're hoping that it comes out by the summer, maybe?
Yeah,
It
that's the
depends
aim.
on
I've just-
the timing that Doris can fit in, because she does have a full-time job.
Yeah. But I
She
just
does-
showed Carol the first rough sketches and the layout, so
Wow.
we're making some progress. And that we also, without giving it away, we want to incorporate that locally with a couple of other organizations to bring a greater message to the storybook. So
And you
how's
can't
that for
give
intrigue?
Anything away,
Okay.
not just a beginning.
Can we-
yes.
yeah,
with frogs?
It's a frogs, yeah. The main character is a frog, so we've teamed up, and I I changed the setting from the original story to be in the Great Swamp so that we could take a few pages at the end of the book and highlight the Great Swamp and everything they're doing for the community.
Oh, that's terrific.
And frogs being friends of the Great Swamp
Yeah.
is an organization.
Yeah.
One of my favorite
Yeah,
organizations.
so they'll have a few pages at the end of the book saying, yes, there really is a Great Swamp.
Friends of Great Swamp in Patterson. It's a wonderful organization. Of course, the swamp is, I don't know what to say about the swamp. It's just the most
It's a vital resource.
beautiful, one of the most beautiful places in Putnam, Dutchess, and it goes all the way up to Westchester, Dutchess,
Right, those
Putnam,
three.
those
Yep.
three counties. So, wow, I am excited about that. I can't wait for that book.
Thank you. Yeah.
And you've the frogs usually have like a gallery and a showing and
In October.
Yeah.
and you have won. Your photographs have won because you've captured the beauty and the magical mystery of the Great Swamp.
It's a very special place.
It is. Yeah.
So I can't wait. Boy, I can't wait to run out and get that book. But in the meantime, you know, you guys are out there with the community, reading your books and sharing and educating. And I'm just so glad you could all be on the show today, and we could talk about Daffodil Press. So,
Thank you.
So thank you, Carol, and thank you, John. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you,
Met
too.
you before, and Doris. Thanks
Thank
very
you very
much. And thanks to the crew that comes, you know, almost all the time. Yeah.
Yes.
Faithfully all the time.
Talented
folks in the control room, and of course the people who watch. Thank you.